The night was quiet, too quiet for Daniel's taste. He had taken a long path through the forest after work, something he rarely did, but tonight the moonlight felt strangely alive. The trees whispered as the cool wind pushed through their branches, and every step Daniel took echoed as if the earth itself was holding its breath. Suddenly, a faint sound reached his ears. It was not the sound of an animal, not the rustle of leaves or the cry of an owl. It was a desperate, broken gasp like someone drowning without water. Daniel stopped, his eyes narrowing as he turned toward the noise. The sound came again, sharper this time, filled with fear and pain. His heart began to beat faster, curiosity fighting with caution. He had heard stories of strange things in these woods, but none had ever seemed real. Yet this sound, it was real, too real to ignore. Daniel pushed through the bushes, his boots crunching against twigs and damp earth. The gasps grew louder, and soon he saw it. Half buried in the ground was something that didn't belong to this world. A glowing pod, cracked open on one side, steam hissing from the broken edges. Its surface shimmered with faint blue light, symbols carved into it like ancient writing. Daniel froze, unable to believe his eyes. Then he saw her. Inside the broken pod lay a woman. No, not a woman, not human. Her skin was pale with a hint of silver, her veins glowing faintly like threads of light onto the surface. Her eyes flickered open for a moment, dark and shining, before closing again as she gasped for air. Daniel's chest tightened. He had seen fear in people before, but this was different. She wasn't just scared, she was dying. For a moment, Daniel thought of running. Who wouldn't? A strange creature in a glowing machine, gasping for air in the middle of the forest. But something inside him refused to leave. Her hands twitched weakly, reaching out as if begging for help. Her lips moved, a whisper too soft to understand, but filled with desperation. Daniel stepped closer, his body shaking. Hey, can you hear me? He whispered. Of course, she didn't reply, at least not in a way he could understand. Her chest rose and fell in sharp, painful gasps, each one shorter than the last. Daniel realized if he didn't act now, she wouldn't survive. He knelt beside the pod, the air around it strangely warm. The inside smelled like metal and smoke, mixed with something sharp that stung his nose. With trembling hands, he tried to lift her, but her body felt fragile, too light, as if hollow. Her skin was cool, almost icy, yet it burned where it touched his. Daniel gritted his teeth and pulled her free, laying her on the grass. Her head fell to the side, and for a moment, Daniel thought she had stopped breathing. No. Stay with me, he muttered, pressing his hand gently against her chest. There was a faint pulse, weak but still there. Her lips parted, and a single word escaped, broken, gasping air. Daniel's heart nearly stopped. She had spoken in English, or something close enough to it. Air. She needed air. He looked around helplessly. What could he do? There was no hospital nearby, no one he could call without risking everything. He thought about dragging her back to the road, but what if someone else found her? What would they do to her? The woman's hand suddenly gripped his wrist with surprising strength. Her eyes snapped open, glowing faintly as she locked onto him. Daniel froze, his breath caught in his throat. She was not just asking for help. She was demanding it, pleading with everything she had left. A surge of determination filled him. Whatever she was, wherever she came from, she needed him right now, and he could not walk away. He slid his arms under her and lifted, her body feather-light in his grasp. The pod behind them let out a low hum, cracks spreading along its surface. Daniel glanced back, fear flashing through him. Whatever that thing was, it wasn't safe to stay. The forest seemed to lean closer, the shadows darker, as if watching his every move. He tightened his hold on her and whispered, almost to himself, "Hang on, I've got you." As he carried her through the trees, the night no longer felt silent. Every sound seemed louder, sharper, the crack of a twig, the distant howl of wind. Daniel's pulse thundered in his ears, and the weight in his arms, though light, felt heavier with every step. Something was waiting in the darkness. He could feel it. But he didn't stop. He couldn't. The alien woman gasped again, weaker this time. Her glowing veins flickered like fading stars. Daniel held her tighter, fear biting at his chest. He had no idea what he was walking into. All he knew was that he couldn't let her die. And in that moment, he realized his life was about to change forever. Daniel's arms ached as he carried the alien woman through the trees, but he refused to stop. Her faint breaths rattled against his chest, each one sounding weaker than the last. The forest stretched endlessly before him, and the night air grew colder, biting into his skin. He whispered to her, though he doubted she understood, "Hold on, just hold on." Finally, the edge of the woods appeared, and beyond it, the faint lights of his farmhouse glowed like a promise. He hurried across the open field, his boots sinking into damp soil, every step heavier than the last. The silence of the night was broken only by the sound of her shallow gasps. Daniel pushed his way into the house, kicking the door shut behind him, his heart pounding in his ears. He laid her gently on the worn-out couch, sweat dripping down his forehead. For a moment, he simply stared at her, unsure what to do next. Her skin shimmered faintly, glowing veins pulsing slower and slower. Her lips parted again, whispering that same desperate word, air. Daniel rushed to his workshop in the back room, searching frantically. He pulled out an old oxygen mask he once used for welding projects, the tube cracked but still working. With trembling hands, he pressed it over her mouth and nose, twisting the valve until the hiss of oxygen filled the room. At first, nothing happened, and panic stabbed his chest, but then her chest rose more steadily, her gasps becoming less shallow. She was breathing barely, but it was enough. Daniel collapsed into the chair beside her, his body shaking from both exhaustion and fear. Up close, she looked even less human, her features delicate and strange, her silver-tinted skin reflecting the faint lamplight. Yet there was something undeniably alive about her, something that reached deep into him. She wasn't just a creature. She was a person, fighting for every breath. Suddenly, her eyes flickered open, dim but aware. She stared at him, unblinking, as if trying to understand. Her lips moved again, this time forcing out a single broken word in English. Danger. The word sent a shiver through Daniel's spine. Danger from what? From whom? His mind raced, thinking about the strange pod in the forest, the glowing symbols, the hum of energy that made his skin crawl. If that thing had fallen from the sky, others would know, and they would be coming. A sound outside snapped him back to reality. A low hum, faint but growing louder. Daniel hurried to the window, pulling the curtain just enough to peek through. His heart skipped. Dark shapes moved against the sky, mechanical and precise. Drones, their red lights blinking as they scanned the area. Panic surged through him. They were searching for her, there was no doubt. Daniel turned back to the woman, who was watching him now with wide, glowing eyes. She didn't speak, but she didn't need to. Her fear told him everything. He grabbed a blanket and wrapped it around her trembling frame, lifting her again despite the protest of his muscles. Down the narrow hall, he pushed open the door to the basement, the smell of dust and earth rushing to meet him. He carried her down the creaking steps, lowering her onto an old cot he hadn't used in years. The basement was dark, safe, hidden, at least for now. The hum outside grew louder, closer, as if circling the farmhouse. Daniel's pulse thundered, his hands shaking as he pulled a tarp over the basement windows. The alien woman gripped his hand suddenly, startling him. Her skin burned cold against his, and her glowing eyes locked onto his with desperate intensity. She lifted her shirt slightly, revealing a scar along her ribs, faint light pulsing beneath it. Daniel's breath caught. It wasn't just a scar. Something moved beneath her skin, a small device glowing faintly. A tracker. That was how they were following her, not just by the pod, but by her own body. She pointed at the scar, whispering weakly, Remove. Daniel stared, horrified. He wasn't a doctor. He wasn't trained for this. But the urgency in her voice left no room for doubt. If he didn't take it out, they would find her. And when they did, they would find him too. Daniel took a step back, running a hand through his hair, his mind racing. He thought of calling someone, but who? The police? The government? No. If they knew, she would never survive. It had to be him, only him. He turned toward the workbench in the corner, his eyes scanning the tools. A small knife, sterilized alcohol, bandages, improvised, but all he had. He grabbed them, his hands trembling, his heart screaming at him to stop. Yet when he turned back, her gaze met his again, silent and unbroken. Trust, fragile but real, passed between them. Daniel swallowed hard, kneeling beside her. "This is going to hurt," he whispered, his voice shaking. Her hand tightened around his wrist, steadying him as much as herself. Her glowing veins pulsed faintly, her breaths shallow but steady. The danger outside pressed closer, the hum of drones circling like vultures. Daniel raised the blade, his pulse racing, knowing there was no turning back. And in that tense silence, as steel touched her skin, Daniel realized this moment was no longer about fear. It was about survival, hers, and maybe even his own. The blade trembled in Daniel's hand as he hovered over the alien woman's scar. Her glowing eyes stayed fixed on him, unblinking, her breath shallow but steady. He could hear the hum of the drones outside, faint but growing closer, each second ticking like a countdown. If he didn't act now, they would be discovered. Daniel exhaled slowly, pressing the knife against her skin. The moment the blade touched, she stiffened, her body arching with pain, but she didn't cry out. Her glowing veins flared, light spreading across her body like fire under glass. Daniel's stomach twisted, but he kept cutting carefully, small and steady. Blood seeped out, not red but silver, shining in the dim light of the basement. It clung to his hands, sticky and cold, almost alive. Then he saw it. The tip of the knife scraped against something hard beneath her skin. A small device, black and metallic, pulsing with faint blue light. The tracker. Daniel swallowed hard, his hands slick with sweat and silver blood. He dug carefully, prying the device free, his heart hammering louder than the sound of the drones above. With one final push, the tracker slipped out, glowing faintly in his palm. The alien gasped, her body relaxing slightly as the faint light in her veins steadied. Daniel held the device up, unsure what to do. But the decision was made for him. The tracker beeped sharply, then began flashing. A signal, calling whoever was searching. Panic surged through Daniel. He sprinted to the workbench, slamming the tracker down with a hammer, sparks flying as the device shattered. The glow died instantly, leaving only broken metal. But his relief didn't last. Outside, the hum of drones grew louder, their red lights cutting through the night as they closed in on the farmhouse. Daniel rushed back to her side, his chest tight. She was weak, her skin pale, but her eyes were still open. She whispered something in her own language, soft and musical, then forced a word he could understand. "Safe." He shook his head, whispering back, "No, we're not safe. Not yet." The basement walls shook as a spotlight passed over the farmhouse above. Daniel's breath caught. Time was running out. He grabbed a cloth, pressing it against her wound to stop the flow of silver blood, then wrapped bandages around her ribs as best he could. Her fingers twitched against his arm, gripping him weakly. She didn't have to speak for him to understand. She was trusting him with her life. The sound outside shifted, heavy boots now thudding against the ground. Not just drones anymore, soldiers. Daniel froze, every muscle in his body tight. Through the cracks in the basement window, he saw shadows moving, armored figures scanning the field with weapons in hand. He felt his throat tighten. What was he supposed to do? He was just one man, and they were trained, armed, and searching for her. His mind raced, hide, fight, run. None of it felt possible. Then his eyes fell on her again, the faint glow of her veins, the the silver blood still seeping through the bandages. She wasn't just an alien, she was something more, something powerful, even if she was too weak to show it now. The soldiers' voices echoed outside, distorted by their helmets. "Tracker led us here," one said. "Search the area, the pod's close," another barked. Daniel's heart pounded. The tracker was gone, destroyed, but they were still here, still searching. He needed to buy time. He moved quickly, grabbing the tarp to cover her completely, then pushed old crates and tools around her cot to make the space look like nothing more than storage. Her glowing veins dimmed, fading under the cover. Daniel pressed a finger to his lips, whispering, "Stay quiet," though he knew she barely understood. The basement door creaked. Daniel whipped around, fear shooting through him. A shadow fell across the stairs. Heavy boots thumping one by one as a soldier stepped down, rifle raised. The beam of a flashlight swept across the basement, landing on Daniel. He forced a shaky smile, trying to sound calm. "Evening," he muttered, his voice betraying his nerves. The soldier's visor tilted, the light glaring into Daniel's eyes. "What are you doing down here?" the soldier asked, voice muffled but sharp. Daniel's mind scrambled for an answer. "Fixing pipes," he blurted out, gesturing to the scattered tools on the workbench. The soldier's light lingered on him, then swept across the basement, pausing dangerously close to the crates hiding her. Daniel's chest tightened, sweat rolling down his neck. If they found her, it was over. The soldier lowered the light slightly, as if satisfied, but then frowned. "What's that smell?" he asked, stepping closer. Daniel's heart stopped. The scent of silver blood, faint but metallic, still hung in the air. He opened his mouth, searching for words, but none came. Behind him, the alien shifted, a faint glow slipping through the tarp. The soldier's light snapped toward it instantly. Daniel's stomach dropped, his body frozen. The soldier raised his rifle, eyes narrowing behind the visor. And in that moment, Daniel knew the fragile safety of his farmhouse was gone. The hidden truth of what he had brought into his home was about to be revealed. The soldier's rifle gleamed under the dim basement light, aimed directly at the tarp-covered cot. Daniel's breath caught, his mind screaming at him to move, but his body frozen in fear. The alien woman stirred faintly, the glow beneath the tarp pulsing once like a heartbeat. The soldier's visor tilted, suspicion growing, his finger tightening on the trigger. Daniel acted without thinking. He grabbed a wrench from the workbench and hurled it across the room. It clanged loudly against a pipe, sparks flying, the noise echoing through the basement. The soldier swung his weapon toward the sound, distracted for just a second. Daniel lunged forward, slamming into him, both crashing hard onto the concrete floor. The rifle fired, the shot deafening in the small space, the bullet tearing into the wall above the cot. Dust rained from the ceiling as Daniel wrestled with the soldier, hands slipping on the armored vest. The soldier shoved him back with brutal strength, the flashlight beam cutting across Daniel's face. Daniel's chest burned, fear clawing at him, but he scrambled to his feet, grabbing the fallen rifle. The soldier lunged again, knocking it away, the weapon skidding across the floor. "Back up," the soldier barked into his radio, voice sharp and urgent. Daniel's blood ran cold. More were coming. He swung wildly, his fist connecting with the soldier's helmet, barely making an impact. The soldier shoved him down again, raising a knife this time, blade glinting under the dim light. Then it happened. A burst of light flared from the cot, bright and blinding. The soldier froze, visor turning toward it. The tarp burned away in an instant, revealing the alien woman sitting upright, her veins glowing fiercely, her eyes blazing like stars. She raised a trembling hand, and the air seemed to ripple around her. A force slammed into the soldier, hurling him across the basement like a rag doll, crashing into crates with a sickening thud. His radio sputtered, the words cut off, his body limp but still breathing. Daniel gaped, shielding his eyes from the fading glow. The woman's hand dropped, her chest heaving as if the effort had drained what little strength she had left. Daniel rushed to her side, fear and awe battling inside him. "You did that," he whispered, voice shaking. She met his gaze, eyes softening, her lips forming a single weak word. "Run." The pounding of boots echoed above, more soldiers storming the farmhouse. Daniel grabbed her, lifting her with all the strength left in his arms. The basement shook as the front door above burst open, voices shouting commands. Flashlights swept across the floorboards, beams piercing through cracks. Daniel raced to the back of the basement, kicking open a hidden door that led to an old root cellar tunnel. He had dug it years ago as a storm shelter, never imagining it would become their escape route. He ducked inside, the woman cradled against his chest, the air damp and cold around them. Behind him, the sound of soldiers filled the basement, footsteps crashing down the stairs, shouts growing louder. The tunnel was narrow, the walls pressing close, his boots splashing in shallow water. He pushed forward, heart hammering, the woman's faint glow lighting the dark path. Shouts echoed behind him, the metallic click of weapons ready to fire. Bullets tore through the entrance, sparks bouncing off the stone walls. Daniel ducked, pressing forward faster, his lungs burning. The woman stirred weakly, whispering words in her language, her hand pressing against his chest. He didn't understand, but he felt it, a faint warmth spreading through him, his strength returning, his fear steadying. It was as if she was giving him something, a part of her will to survive. The tunnel stretched on forever, but finally, faint moonlight glimmered ahead. Daniel burst out into the open field behind the farmhouse, the night air sharp against his face. The woman gasped softly, her eyes closing, her body limp once again in his arms. Daniel looked back. Shadows poured into the tunnel, red lights glowing like predators in the dark. He sprinted across the field, his boots pounding the ground. The drones above whirred to life, spotlights slicing through the night, chasing him like hunters. One beam locked onto him, and a sharp voice shouted from behind, "Target acquired." A gunshot cracked, the bullet slicing through the grass near his feet. Daniel zigzagged, running harder, his lungs screaming, his arms burning with the woman's weight. He spotted the old barn at the far edge of the field, its roof half collapsed but walls still standing. If he could reach it, maybe he could hide, maybe buy just a few more minutes. The ground shook as something heavy landed behind him. He risked a glance back and froze. One of the drones had descended, its mechanical legs stabbing into the soil, red eye glowing, weapons arming with a sharp whine. Daniel's heart leapt into his throat. He pushed harder, every step a battle against fear and exhaustion. The barn loomed closer, the woman's faint glow lighting his path. Bullets tore the earth around him, the air buzzing with heat. Daniel dove into the barn, rolling across the dirt floor, clutching her tight. The drone's red eye glowed at the doorway, scanning, its metallic body blocking the moonlight. Daniel's chest heaved, his body trembling, but his grip on her never loosened. The chase wasn't over. It had only just begun. The barn was dark, filled with dust and the faint smell of hay. Moonlight streamed through cracks in the roof, cutting thin silver lines across the floor. Daniel crouched low, the alien woman still clutched in his arms, her faint glow hidden beneath his jacket. Outside, the drone's red eye scanned the entrance, its mechanical joints hissing as it shifted, weapons humming like angry insects. Daniel's chest heaved, his mind racing. He knew he couldn't fight the machine, not with bare hands, not with her so weak. His eyes darted around the barn, searching, old tools, rusted farm equipment, broken boards, nothing that could stop what was outside. The drone took a slow step forward, its shadow stretching long across the dirt floor. The sound of its servos made Daniel's skin crawl. He backed deeper into the barn, keeping low. The alien stirred in his arms, her eyes fluttering open, glowing faintly in the dark. Her lips moved, whispering in a language he didn't know, soft and broken. Then one word in English slipped through hide. Daniel swallowed hard, pressing against a wall, trying to steady his breath. But the drone's red eye locked onto the faint glow from her veins. A sharp tone beeped from its body, target acquired. Weapons unfolded from its sides, twin barrels humming with deadly energy. No, Daniel muttered, fear and rage rising together. He shifted her gently onto the ground, his hands shaking. The drone charged its weapon, sparks dancing at the tip. Daniel braced himself, knowing this might be the end. Then the air shifted. The alien's body pulsed with sudden light, brighter than before, filling the barn with a silver glow. Her eyes snapped open, blazing like burning stars. She raised a trembling hand toward the drone, her voice echoing, layered with power, a single word bursting out. Enough! The world seemed to bend. A shockwave of invisible force exploded from her, slamming into the drone with crushing strength. Metal screamed as the machine was lifted off its legs and hurled backward through the barn doors, crashing into the field outside. The ground shook with the impact, dirt and sparks flying, the drone twitching, broken, its red eye flickering before going dark. Daniel stared, his mouth dry, heart pounding so hard it hurt. She had done it. Weak, wounded, barely able to breathe, yet she had destroyed the machine with a single gesture. The glow around her faded quickly, her body trembling, her chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. She collapsed against the dirt, her strength drained. Daniel rushed to her side, fear and awe tangled together. "Hey, stay with me, please," he whispered, pressing a hand against her shoulder. Her glowing veins flickered weakly, like fading stars. She looked at him, her lips parting, whispering something in her language, then a word he understood. "Last." He frowned, shaking his head. "Last what?" Her eyes closed for a moment, then opened again, shimmering with tears that weren't human, silver drops glinting in the moonlight. She pressed her hand weakly against his temple, her touch icy but electric. And then Daniel saw. Visions flooded his mind, flashes of her world, a sky filled with twin suns, towering cities of crystal and light, children laughing, families smiling. Then fire, endless fire, ships blotting out the sky, explosions tearing through her home, screams that echoed without end. He saw her running, carrying a child who faded into dust before her eyes, saw soldiers with burning eyes and cruel machines destroying everything. Her people falling, one by one, until only silence remained. Daniel gasped, pulling back, his chest aching from the weight of what he had seen. She was the last, the final survivor of a world wiped away. Tears stung his eyes, anger boiling deep in his chest. Who could do something so monstrous? Who would hunt her even here on Earth? The woman's hand slipped from his temple, falling weakly to the ground. Her lips trembled, whispering a single truth. Alone. Daniel shook his head fiercely, grabbing her hand, holding it tight. "No," he said, his voice breaking but firm. "Not alone. Not anymore." For a moment, silence filled the barn, broken only by the sound of distant drones circling the fields. The night was not safe. The soldiers were still out there, and they would return when they realized the machine was gone. But Daniel's fear had shifted into something else now. Resolve. He looked at her fragile form, her glowing veins dim but alive. She was more than a stranger, more than an alien. She was someone worth fighting for. And if the world wanted to take her, it would have to go through him first. The barn was silent except for Daniel's heavy breathing and the faint hum of the alien woman's glowing veins. But outside, the night was alive with danger. The low thrum of engines filled the air, drones circling overhead like vultures, red eyes scanning the fields. And beneath that sound came another, the unmistakable crunch of boots, soldiers moving closer, their voices sharp and metallic through comms. Daniel tightened his grip on the woman's hand, his heart pounding. He couldn't stay here, not with the barn collapsing around them and enemies closing in. But where could he go? The farmhouse was crawling with soldiers, the woods swarming with drones. His options were shrinking with every second. The woman stirred, her eyes opening slightly. Her voice came weak but clear enough. "They follow until death." Daniel's throat tightened. He wanted to argue, to deny it, but he knew she was right. Whoever had sent these machines, whoever commanded those soldiers, would not stop until she was gone. Boots slammed against the barn doors, heavy and deliberate. "Search inside," a voice ordered. Daniel's stomach dropped. The door creaked as soldiers began to force their way in. He looked around desperately, his eyes falling on the trapdoor at the back of the barn, leading to the underground tunnels that connected to the old well. It wasn't much, but it was something. He lifted her into his arms again, whispering, "We're not done yet." Her weak grip tugged at his shirt, as if to ask, "Why risk yourself?" But Daniel didn't answer. He simply carried her, because leaving her was not an option. The barn doors burst open, light flooding inside, the shadows of armored men spilling across the floor. "Freeze!" one shouted, weapons raised. Daniel dropped through the trapdoor just as bullets ripped through the barn walls, with splintering, hay exploding into dust. The tunnel was narrow, damp, and filled with the smell of earth. Daniel's boots splashed in the water as he ran, clutching her tightly. Behind him, soldiers dropped into the tunnel, their flashlights cutting through the dark. "Target moving east," a voice barked. Daniel's chest burned, every breath a battle, but he kept moving. The woman's faint glow lit the path ahead, her eyes half closed, her body trembling in his arms. "Almost there," he whispered, though the words were more for himself. The tunnel opened into the old stone well, moonlight shining faintly through the cracks above. Daniel set her down gently, then looked up at the rope ladder that stretched toward the surface. It was rotten, old, but it was their only way out. He helped her climb slowly, step by step, his hands steadying her as bullets cracked against the stones below. Soldiers were close, too close. They reached the surface just as shadows spilled into the bottom of the well. Daniel dragged her onto the grass, pulling the ladder up and tossing it aside, buying seconds at most. Drones circled above, their red lights locking onto him instantly. Soldiers spread across the field, their weapons gleaming under the moon, surrounding them. Daniel's chest heaved, his eyes darting around, searching for any way out. But there was none. Too many soldiers, too many drones, and he had nothing but his bare hands. He pulled the alien woman close, shielding her with his body, whispering, "I won't let them take you." The soldiers advanced, rifles raised, voices shouting commands. One called out, "Stand down, human. Step away from the subject." Daniel's jaw tightened, anger boiling inside him. Subject, that's all they saw her as. Not a person, not a survivor, only a thing to capture. He shook his head, shouting back, "She's not yours. You'll have to kill me first." The soldiers didn't hesitate, weapons locking on him. The alien woman's weak hand pressed against his chest, her eyes glowing brighter. Daniel felt it again, the warmth spreading through him, her strength pouring into his body. His fear burned away, replaced by something else, something fierce. The drones fired, energy bolts slicing through the air. But Daniel moved faster than he thought possible, rolling across the ground, clutching her tight. The blasts exploded behind them, dirt and fire spraying into the night. He ducked behind a fallen tree, his chest heaving, his mind racing. More bolts rained down, soldiers closing in. The alien woman's glow spread across her body, her voice whispering in his mind, though her lips never moved. Together, Daniel looked at her, realization dawning. She wasn't giving him strength. She was sharing it, binding them in a way he couldn't explain. Her glowing veins pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, their breaths syncing, their wills merging. For the first time, he didn't feel like just a man protecting a stranger. He felt like part of something larger, something unstoppable. Soldiers surrounded them, the leader stepping forward, his rifle aimed. Final warning, he barked, "Surrender the subject." Daniel stood tall, the woman at his side, both of them glowing faintly under the moon. He clenched his fists, his voice steady. No. The ground trembled, the air vibrating with unseen energy. The soldiers hesitated, their visors flickering with static. Drones above crackled, their red lights sputtering. The alien woman's glow intensified, flowing into Daniel. And together they unleashed a wave of force that split the night like thunder. Soldiers were thrown back. Drones fell from the sky like broken toys, and the field erupted in chaos. Daniel's knees buckled, the power overwhelming, but he held on, refusing to let go. The woman collapsed against him, her glow fading, but her eyes burned with gratitude. He caught her, lowering her gently, whispering, "We're still here, we're still alive." But deep down, he knew this was only the beginning, because whoever hunted her would not stop, not until the war she carried with her reached Earth itself. The battlefield was quiet now. Smoke drifted through the field, glowing embers fading in a night breeze. Broken drones sparked weakly on the ground, their red eyes lifeless, while soldiers lay scattered and unconscious, their weapons useless in the dirt. Daniel stood in the center of it all, his chest heaving, his body trembling with exhaustion. Beside him, the alien woman knelt weakly, her glow dim but steady. He looked at her, sweat dripping down his face, his heart still racing from the storm of power they had unleashed together. Are you all right?" he whispered, his voice raw. She nodded faintly, her eyes shimmering like dying stars. "Alive, thanks to you." Daniel lowered himself beside her, still gripping her hand. "What did we just do?" he asked, disbelief in his tone. She looked at him with a mixture of sadness and wonder. "You shared my essence," she said softly, struggling with the words. "Our strength became one." Her voice broke, but then she drew a shaky breath and continued. "I came to your world not to fight, but to find hope." Daniel frowned, his brow furrowing. "Hope? In us?" She nodded again, her glowing veins pulsing faintly. "My people gone destroyed, I am last, but I was told humans are different, strong in heart, strong in spirit." Her words cut deep into him. He remembered the vision she had shown him, the burning cities, the children lost, the endless fire. The weight of it pressed against him now, heavier than any battle. "You came here because you believed in us," he murmured. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "Yes, and now I see it as true." She leaned against him, her body fragile but warm. "You fought, not for power, not for gain, but because you chose to. That is human strength." Daniel swallowed hard, his throat tight. He had never thought of himself as special, just a man, a farmer, someone living an ordinary life. But now, holding her hand, he felt the truth of her words. The night around them grew quiet, the stars stretching endlessly above. For the first time since it began, Daniel felt the weight of the silence not as fear, but as peace. Yet deep inside, he knew it wouldn't last. The soldiers would return, stronger, with more machines. Whoever hunted her across galaxies would not give up so easily. The woman's eyes lifted to the stars, her voice soft but filled with conviction. "Together, we can stop them, not just for me, not just for Earth, but for every world they will destroy." Daniel's chest tightened at the enormity of her words. He looked at her, at the scars on her body, at the faint glow of her veins, at the determination that burned through her weakness. And for the first time, he didn't feel small in the face of it all. He felt ready. He placed a hand gently on her shoulder, meeting her gaze. "Then we'll fight together," he said firmly. She blinked, her eyes glistening, her voice almost breaking. "You would risk everything?" Daniel nodded without hesitation. "Everything, because no one deserves to be hunted. No one deserves to be alone." Her tears glowed silver as they slid down her cheeks. She leaned closer, whispering, "You are proof that hope still lives." Daniel felt a strange warmth spread through him, not from her power this time, but from something deeper,